I want to dig in a little bit more about this interaction with Nick Bostrom, if that's okay. So, what sorts of conversations were you having with him before you two decided to actually start the organization?
Well, I think Nick was probably feeling a bit intellectually starved at LSE, and yeah, he came across the hedonistic imperative, and he fired off a couple of relevant questions, criticisms. What would be wrong with simply on this kind of scenario creating just blissful brains in vats? And on a classical utilitarian scenario, there isn't, on the face of it, anything wrong with creating blissful brains in vats. Indeed, arguably, if we can do so, there is a moral obligation to do something similar. Now, in practice, there would presumably be selection pressure against any predisposition to practice wireheading or anything like that. But yeah, if one is a classical utilitarian, then yeah, it's apocalyptic in its implication. Should we be really aiming in the long term to convert the world's matter and energy into utilitarian matter and energy optimized for pure bliss? I mean, whether normally it's negative utilitarianism that is associated with button pressing scenarios. Would you end the world to get rid of suffering? But in practice, it's classical utilitarianism that has extremely apocalyptic consequences too. Anyway, yes, we talked, debated, and yeah, then set up the World Transhumanist Association with a kind of declaration of principles. Commitment to the well-being of all sentients was as number 7. I would put it number 1. But yes, I mean, obviously there is a certain irony with someone who has become associated with the field of existential risk, setting up something like the WTA with a negative utilitarian. But yes, I would argue that these seeming tensions can be reconciled, and that most, if not all, transhumanists would favor this kind of triple S civilization. They would just give very different weight to the different supers, and I would say probably two of very different conceptions of what post-human superintelligence would be.